Welcome back to the Paranorm Girl podcast. I am your host, Kristen. Alien abduction, the UFO phenomenon, ancient aliens, ultra-terrestrials, and fairy folklore. I am so thrilled to be able to share today's conversation with you guys. Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped. As you know, our friends at Manscaped are now selling beard products. The leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming are once again revolutionizing the men's hygiene game with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Say goodbye to your stubble trouble and tame his mane. Save 20% off and free shipping by going to manscaped.com and using code PNG. I asked my partner which item he was really digging this week, and he said, talk about the brush. I use it twice a day. And I was like, okay, Rapunzel, calm down. And then he explained why and what he was doing. So in the mornings, he uses the beard shampoo and conditioner. And then he likes to brush through it, brush through the conditioner, brush through the moisturizer. He says it helps to more evenly distribute the product. Okay, so in the evening, he likes to use a little bit of that beard oil and then brush through it to more evenly distribute the product. For direct feedback on the brush and the process, he says he likes that the bristles are hard enough that he still feels like brushed through. And he also likes that they're soft enough that they're not uncomfortable on his skin. Like, he's got sensitive skin. So, and then, of course, he likes that it more evenly distributes the product through his beard, giving him a soft-to-the-touch, well-coiffed facial hair. So, standout product for the week for Lee, and that can be found in the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. If you would like to try this or any other awesome product found in the kit and save 20% off and free shipping, use code PNG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code PNG. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. My guest is the president of the Cryptoscience Society. He also has a bit of a reputation for having an especial interest in UFOs and participating in that world. Having previously worked with MUFON and currently getting his master's degree in folklore, he's got some incredible thoughts and some interesting ways of looking at this subject. Please enjoy my conversation with Jason Cordova. I really just wanted to jump in with this. You sent me a link recently that you presented something for World UFO Day. It was a big presentation, and as I told you before we started recording, I was really just on the edge of my seat, just listening to this information. I found it absolutely fascinating because, of course, you're pulling from different sources in folklore and history and all sorts of things that supports these current day concepts that we have of UFOs and aliens. And I'm wondering if you can just kind of dive into that a little bit. What are we talking about when we are able to tie in folklore?
Sure. Well, I appreciate that you enjoyed it.
I did.
I always kind of, I don't necessarily always do it for the audience per se. I do it as it's a kind of a hobby of passion, and I do it like no one's looking because I assume that nobody's looking. But when people are, I really greatly appreciate it. So thank you for that. As far as UFOs and folklore, basically, I guess the crux of it all comes around the idea that UFOs are nothing new, right? People have been observing unidentified aerial phenomenon for as long as we've been around, right? As long as we have documentation. And that documentation comes in many different forms, whether it's an oral record passed down through an indigenous way of storytelling, or cave paintings, or certain types of depictions in architecture. Now, not getting into the ancient aliens kind of
it's a whole other thing,
yes,
isn't it?
not to go down the ancient aliens rabbit hole, right? Because that is something to distinguish. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that assuming that aliens did it discounts the credibility and the intelligence, we'll just say it, of our ancestors, right? And it's not just indigenous people. It's not just Asian folks. It's not just white people, right? Like there are highly advanced. There's highly advanced architecture. There's highly advanced civilizations in antiquity throughout the world, and it disrespects those people to jump to the conclusions that aliens did it. Yeah. So
Right.
that's set that there. Now that said, the idea that they've been around, or at least, again, I'm not saying aliens, right? We're saying UFOs being a phenomenon that's been with us since the beginning, as far as we know, and that there's a lot of folklore around it.
Right. Now, you made a distinction there, or maybe I misinterpreted that. Are you distinguishing between the phenomenon of alien encounters and UFO sightings? Are you putting a big fat line in between those two?
It's a blurry line. It is a blurry line because so here's, and we kind of nodded at earlier, you hinted at, you wanted me to get into my super theory of super everything. And it's a controversial opinion. I think it's going to shake a lot of people up. But at this point, I'm not so convinced that it's aliens.
Okay. Let's hear it. I am excited.
Yeah. So now my bachelor's is in aerospace operations, and I have spent a lot of time, a big sci-fi geek, grew up with Star Trek, Star Wars, the whole lot. Super into it, super into UFOs as this idea of like a real life science fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be aliens. I really do. I want aliens to be there. Scientifically speaking, I know. It makes a lot more sense to think there is intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. We can't be the only game in town. And some of those UFOs may have an extraterrestrial intelligence behind them. However, if we're looking at the likelihood, just statistically speaking, and applying Occam's razor to it, the idea that maybe, just maybe, it's has a local origin. Okay? And so Ivan T. Sanderson was an author in the early part of the 20th century who proposed a book called Invisible Residence, where he described the idea of what he called the ultra-terrestrial. And this is, I've seen a lot of folks kind of using the idea of an ultra-terrestrial to apply to an extra-dimensional being, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in its earlier sense, in the way Ivan Sanderson presented it, in the way that I think is more likely, is that the idea that a species originated on Earth, reached a high degree of advancement, and developed high technology, such as we see with the UFO phenomenon, right? And of course, there's no evidence like no hard evidence to support this theory, right? Like it's kind of out there, kind of wingnut, but it's not. I mean, I feel like it deserves to at least be talked about alongside the extraterrestrial theory and us from the future and interdimensionality when we're talking about who is behind this phenomenon. And honestly, when it comes down to it, it's probably some combination of everything and something we probably never even thought of.
Okay. Okay. I don't think it's wingnut or out there at all. I think it has just as much gravity as any of those other theories that you
Mhm.
just mentioned. Absolutely. And it absolutely could be a mixture of all of it
Mhm.
going on. I mean, who knows at this point, but why are you focused so much more on this as a really good possibility?
Well, there's a few things that play into this idea. One is that Earth, at one time, was populated by multiple species of humans. Right? Just because we're here now, right? Just because we're the so-called apex, right? Uh, doesn't necessarily mean that, like, as far as we know, right? Suppose one of our early human cousins managed to reach a level of advancement and either retreated into the oceans or just went to traveling out into space. Now, so going back to the encounter phenomenon, right? We get a lot of support for this idea from the encounter phenomenon. One, they're usually described as humanoid, right? Some sort of facsimile, something resembling a bipedal hominid, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Even if it is a little bit weird, wonky, right? There's it's more like us than not. In the context of if it was an alien species, that is one that was biologically evolved on another planet in another solar system, it would probably manifest pretty differently, unless there's something universal to this upright walking bipedal intelligence kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we don't know. We don't have enough. Um, we don't have any precedent for a specimen of a life form from another planet yet.
Yeah.
Until we do, we're just guessing. The other thing is that hybridization, right? In a large majority of these encounters that folks claim to have, there is seems to be a theme of reproduction happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for reproduction to happen, there has to be a certain threshold of genetic similarity, right?
Right.
We know that human Homo sapiens interbred with Neanderthals and other of the close species of humans. So it stands to reason that perhaps another species of human more closely related to us than one that evolved independently on another planet, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is not just exclusive to the contemporary alien abduction scenario that mirrors in, say, fairy lore from various cultures throughout the world. A lot of times we have um, some kind of etheric being that is interacting with humans and often results in some kind of hybrid offspring, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Greek myths, fairy lore, getting taken away to the fairy realm in order to be um, held as a spouse for some kind of fey being, and there's time dilations, and as in missing time, people go into the fairy realm and think they're only there for a few a few hours and come back and find either days or years have passed. Parallel that almost line by line with some of the contemporary encounters, like Benny and Barty Hill, Travis Walton. These kinds of things run consistent. So just a little kind of like off the top of my head, little things I've been just kind of bouncing around. I want it to be aliens, but we don't have any evidence for it. And what if, and I also think that this idea doesn't get enough attention, or doesn't really get attention, because I think it's more damaging to the ego to think that we don't have dominion over this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That maybe there's somebody that's better than us, right? And that's that. There's all kinds of really kind of strange ideas to explore when you look at that from that angle. Again, it's, I feel like it's pretty thin, just kind of an idea I've had bouncing around in my head, but that
Yeah,
that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately.
I think I have a hard time not separating all of these different things, like what you just included in just that little segment there's a lot going on there. Like there's a spiritual element, a etherical element. We're talking about fairies, we're talking about aliens, maybe they have nothing to do with UFOs. There's a lot of things going on there, and I think I compartmentalize these subjects because it is more comfortable to do that. And like we so want to put a title on things, to label things, but maybe it is just a bit more, I don't know, ethereal or liminal than that. Like maybe there's this just big gray area and that's all that it is. So real quick, back to the fairy concept, because you brought that to my attention. I was saying in an episode, which you listened, thank you, that hey, I can't find any abduction stories prior to I think it was like 1895, 96, something like that. And you came to me on the side and were like, well, have you looked at fairy abductions? It just never occurred to me. And I have heard of some of those stories. I didn't realize how similar to the actual abduction story those were. And that goes back in history quite a long ways. And before that, it was other creatures or entities or things like that, right? Yeah.
Right. So just like with the UFO, I feel like people are relating to this phenomenon through the cultural lens that they are existent, right? Whether it's angels, jinn, fairies, and now the UFOs and aliens represent this kind of mystical entity for a technological scientific age, right? That really shifted. You can see it shift if you look at the like the airship flap in the 1890s, where people throughout the United States were claiming to see what they described as airships. They were craft that were piloted by strange. In some cases, it varies all over the place, and I think that it's one of the. I think that particular situation was a case where there were, there may have been some grains of truth, but the press and media got a hold of it and embellished some things. So it's kind of hard to really weed through kind of the reality of what was happening there. But if we take it at its word, right, even just as a conceptual idea, what was being presented then was very reflective of the time, right? We're talking like it's steampunk, right? Like it's
Right.
real life steampunk happening as in real time, right? Versus, the 1950s or 1947, right? Kenneth Arnold sighting, Roswell crash, all of these kinds of the concept, that the mindset of people observing them were relating to them in this way,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was very reflective of the time.
Right.
So yeah, you take that, late 1800s, when the Brothers Grimm were collecting their stories. Now, there's one in there where a girl gets whisked away. Well, I think, if I remember right, the story is uh, she's instructed to go give something to the fairies in the cave, and then she's there for what she thinks is a few days. They wine and dine her, they charm her, and then she comes back, and it's years later. The place she used to live there, they went away. They're like her employers are no longer there. She was a housemaid, something like that, and that it's this whatever is going on there. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. These stories, whether or not they're actually literal truth, whether or not they happened, the idea that these stories are manifesting somehow could be some kind of an indicator that there's something else going on, and that there's this common theme that seems to be playing out throughout history.
Okay. Okay. Now, take our modern day concept of the UFO, or even just throughout history, the things that people have been seeing, the aerial
Mm-hmm.
phenomena.
The
They,
nuts and bolts.
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like a very physical manifestation occurring in the physical world. Like we're snapping photos and getting video footage
Mm-hmm.
of these things.
Sure.
Does it okay. And then we've got this other
And yet it still does things, and yet
R-
they still do things that defy what we
yeah.
understand of the physical laws. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess yeah, I'm just having trouble like just really conceptualizing what this could possibly be, and I keep trying to simplify it for myself, and I guess it's just not so it's
Well,
not
and
so
that's the
simple.
thing. I mean, I've been formally studying this phenomenon for going on 20 years now, right? I was a field investigator for MUFON um, after I got out of the Navy. I joined my cousin Alejandro Rojas
Hmm.
as a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network. I founded the Crypto Science Society when I was an undergrad at Metropolitan State University of Denver.
Hmm.
Um, and I simultaneously earned my degree in aerospace operations and developed these protocols for being a paranormal and UFO investigator. And over this whole period of time, I've been investigating and reading up on all of these cases and all of these stories and all of these scenarios. And the more answers we uncover, the more questions, right? Like every question that's answered unlocks a new question. And it is a rabbit hole, right? It is a really wild ride. Um, and of course, we all want it to be able to be compartmentalized and to be able to fit into these tiny little, put everything into the category, right? File it, identify this is definitely, this is a UFO case. This is a Bigfoot encounter. And this is a poltergeist situation. So why is this person who has, they called me to their house because they have a poltergeist, and yet we're finding other things happening as well, right?
Hmm.
So this high strangeness aspect that plays in, I think also, and for those who aren't aware, this idea of high strangeness is when it's all uh, when it can't be compartmentalized, right? You can't. Um, there's, yeah. I don't want to get too off course, but as an example of a good high strangeness case would be the Mothman, right? And that's a whole topic on its own. We did an episode about it. You can go check that out. But this idea of high strangeness and what we're kind of coming to think of as a psycho-reactive phenomenon.
Can you talk about that? What does that mean?
A psycho-reactive phenomenon is something that happens in response to the observer, right? So there's a few cases of UFO sightings where the witness is looking at the UFO and they think to themselves, I wonder if it's going to turn left, and it turns left, right? Huh. The stuff going on in Point Pleasant, in West Virginia, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, when the Mothman and the Silver Bridge collapse and all these things going on, there's a lot of situations where these kinds of things came up. It seemed to be a high strangeness scenario. That is based on the narrative of John Keel, who is the primary source for a lot of this. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of. Sorry, my cat is coming to
making another appearance.
She's making an appearance. Yes. Okay, go to the left. Okay. Okay. So yes, unfortunately, like John Keel is the primary source for this, so we kind of have to go off of his narrative. But the point is that there is this this thing that happens where there's a high strangeness thing going on, where there's a lot of weird stuff, and it can't all be categorized into neat little packages where we say that's the UFO, that's the Bigfoot, or the Mothman, or whatever the cryptid is supposed to be, and ghosts and Men in Black and all that other stuff. So what actually is going on here? What could possibly be really happening? And I think that there may be something environmental, something that is going beyond our understanding or perceptions, that is possibly intelligent, that is reacting to us and what our expectations are and what we want to see versus what we think we should see, versus what might be more palatable to an individual.
Right. So we're basically creating the things that we're seeing. Like they're there, but it's reacting off of our expectations.
Kind of, yeah. Think of like, and I'm sorry, I did not expect to get this esoteric, but
I didn't either. This is awesome.
But here we are. So think of like the holodeck in Star Trek, right? Hypothetically speaking, let's just say that there is some kind of an intelligent being, right, that is interacting with us, that can read our thoughts, read our mind. And therefore, it wants to interact with us in a way that's going to be more comfortable, right? So it creates this image that it thinks we are going to be able to understand, or not, or it's doing it on purpose and like
the cosmic joker. Yeah.
Right. Which again kind of harkens back to that trickster kind of fairy type energy, right?
Right.
So what if, for lack of a better way to identify it, what if it's all just fairies, right?
Sure. Yeah.
They're kind of etheric. They can manifest. They can manifest in different ways. They can change their appearance. They can present things to us that may or may not be physically real, or maybe it is all just a mass hallucination.
Or simulation. I don't know.
Or
It
a
gets
simulation.
it can go any. Yeah,
Right.
the theories abound.
I hesitate to go the the holographic universe route,
Yeah. Okay.
but I don't. Because I kind of think that's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but suffice it to say, I feel like it's at least reasonable to think that there's definitely more going on there than we can perceive, and our need and our desire to categorize it is probably inhibiting us getting a true understanding of what it
Okay.
is.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we did go a bit esoteric there. I love those kinds of conversations, though. Let's I'll pull it back a little bit and let's talk about some real aspects of this phenomenon that we know to be
Nuts and
true.
bolts.
Nuts and bolts. Maybe not so much. I am curious your thoughts on the aspects of this phenomena that just confuse it even more, but they are a part of it inherently. Things like crop circles, things
Mm-hmm.
like cow mutilation, things like Men
Mm-hmm.
in Black. What are your thoughts on those types of that people just automatically lump into all of this?
Mm-hmm. So the agricultural anomalies, right? The crop circles and cattle mutilations, um, I think are tricky because again, that kind of has to be looked at through a cultural lens, right? Again, they're lumped into the UFO thing because what else? What else in this modern technological society could possibly do that, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's legitimately weird. I've had the pleasure to work with Nancy Talbot in BLT Research regarding crop circles, and she's done some excellent work on that. And so I highly recommend um, to look into her work to get into the like deep um, stuff with crop circles. That said, um, I don't know that we're any closer to an answer to what's causing them. We could go into detail about how weird they are and the strange anomalies that parallel crop circles and cattle mutilations. Um, One that stands out is they tend to only affect organic farms and cattle.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You never see a crop circle in a Monsanto field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Why? Why are the cattle mutilations only affecting organically raised beef?
Huh. And that's
Um,
for a fact? Like I've just never heard
as
that information
far as
before.
I know,
Oh.
and as far as like what we've worked with, the case that me and my cousin investigated, and for the at least what I know of the documented cases,
Mm-hmm.
um, if not all of them, the majority of them are occur with organically raised cattle.
Right.
They're
Okay.
not they're not affecting the factory farms. If they are, they're not talking about it,
Huh.
right? But as far as we have documented, they don't appear to be happening in non non-organic stuff.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I
Okay.
have. Uh, it's again, it's one mystery after another, right?
Right.
Um, the Now crop circles, yes, we know we can recreate them. It's easy to make a crop circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as easy to make a crop circle that causes the nodes to bulge out. It's not as easy to make a crop circle that has a dusting of magnetite and magnetic hematite that's sprinkled at specific intervals throughout the crop circle emanating from the center, right?
Okay.
or as we can say, agroglyphs. So there's a lot of things, and both of these things tend to occur in with the cattle mutilation cases, right? Um, so magnetite and magnetic hematite are kind of unique. Magnetic hematite only occurs in nature when it's heated up really quick and cooled down. It's heated up and cooled down very quickly. Right? That's the only way to make magnetic hematite.
Okay.
So what often happens is these pods or like spheroids of magnetic hematite and magnetite are found in the crop circle or around the cattles.
Huh. That is incredible. I didn't
Yeah.
know you were gonna give me all this information. I just never heard before.
What does it
And
mean? I don't know.
well, this is the kind of stuff that just really makes it so significant too. Like this is not just pranksters, human pranksters doing this stuff
Hmm.
to like fool the masses or whatever. Like no, there's
Hmm.
something very, very special about these particular occurrences that are taking place because, like with the heating process, and I can't even repeat what you just said, but yeah, with all those really special signifying things that are a part of it. That is
Right.
so interesting. Okay. What before I forget, what was your part in MUFON? What I didn't realize you were as a part of it so extensively.
I was a field investigator.
Okay. Okay. How long did you do
Mhm.
that?
A few years, so 2004 to maybe '08, I think.
Okay. Okay. Why did you leave?
Um, a few reasons. One, kept focusing on my studies and the Crypto Science Society was one of
Okay.
them.
Mhm.
Also, um, kind of my cousin Alejandro got scooped up to run Open Minds TV, and it was kind of uh, well, yeah. I wanted to branch off, right, and do my own thing too.
Mhm.
We go in our ways, so um, that was all kind of happening simultaneously. So,
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I think who are the UFO folk?
who are the UFO folk?
Yeah.
um, we lovingly refer to the UFOers, right, or
Mhm.
the followers, right? Kind of uh, the the true believers generally, and they genuinely you can identify them as their own subculture, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Which is kind of interesting too. I think in my World UFO Day talk, I did kind of hint at wanting to uh, really talk a little bit more about the subculture, but I get too excited about the phenomenon, and I don't want to disenfranchise anybody, and I think that sometimes people can be kind of sensitive and take things personally, and I don't mean anything by it, but there's definitely a mentality of there's a lore, right? That thing is a well-known lore, right? For example, the people know that a an alien craft crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and the government recovered bodies and back engineered the technology, and that's why we have transistors, and that's why we made treaties with aliens. Eisenhower made treaties with the aliens. All of this lore, right? That doesn't necessarily have a lot of evidence or documentation to back it up, but it's ingrained, right? Like you know that people are out there that know this and they know it well,
Right.
and um, I think that's something of its own, right? To almost it's I don't necessarily want to take it as far as to call it a religion, but
Mm-hmm.
there are those who devote to it with that religious kind of fervor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And unfortunately, there are some people out there with malicious intent who do prey on that. They prey on that. They exploit that, and they prey on that vulnerability and that desire, right? That genuine desire for meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, I want it to be aliens. I really do. I love it. I want Star Trek to be real, right? We're probably a good ways off from first contact if we go that timeline, right? You know, the Vulcans passing by and just happened to watch us test the first warp drive. But um, if it's I don't feel like I need someone to um, proselytize to me about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there are those who do.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's important to be careful. Yeah, you can have your beliefs, you can have your fun, um, and certainly the conventions and all the events are a lot of fun, and I enjoy them. But it's important to be, to be cautious, to be mindful. Don't blindly follow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is a way to be logical with this information too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's still there's still a bit of a stigma to even hinting that you believe that hey, there's something else going on or there's UFOs in the sky
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. There's still that stigma, but I think there is a way to make your way through this information, and especially with the government disclosures, like the government literally saying, "Yeah, yeah, they're up there. We
Right.
don't know what's going on."
Right.
So they've admitted they're real. Now it's just a matter of, let's keep our cool. Let's just be logical about this and go through this and just figure out what are they? What is it?
Mm-hmm. Which
So,
is, it's really exciting. It's exciting for those of us who are, really applying this critical lens to it. And
mhm.
there's been a fissure since 2017, since this came out. There's a lot of folks who are, resistant. It's like because it contradicts the folklore narrative, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but Area 51, right? But Roswell, the aliens, they have them.
Mhm.
How is the government coming out and saying that uh, UFOs are real, but we don't know who's behind them?
Right.
Because of course we know, right? But so there's that fissure, right? And those of us who are like, all right, cool, let's see what you got. Let's see what's happening there, and really following the trail, following the evidence wherever it leads us. And then the pushback from like, but this isn't this isn't the original, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that kind of it goes into that very, some people can get a little religious about it, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what side of the line you fall on. Anyone can fall victim to that so strongly held belief of anything that you can't see anything beyond that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All right. Well, I think it is a good time to throw some quick rapid fire questions at you, and we'll bring this baby to a close.
Cool.
All right. All right. So, oh, okay. This was a good one. I don't think I asked you the last time. I was curious, what was your first? That first story that brought you into your passion for all things UFO and this world. What was it? What made you pay attention?
Hmm. My first, that's tough. I can't, I can't because it was such a big part of my life growing up, right? Like my dad and my grandma um, raised me with this interest, with this intention. They gave me the books. right? Like the Time Life series, Mysterious World kind of stuff. So I can't think of a specific case where that was the first, right? But I
Okay.
remember being just ingrained with it from an early age.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fair. Will we ever get the answers in our lifetime?
We will get answers.
But not the
They will
answers?
not be the answers you're looking for.
Okay. All right. All right. Um, I think, my only other question was, unless you have something to add to it, we already kind of spoke about it. I was just curious what you thought of the more spiritual side behind aliens.
I think that, yeah, I think the spiritual side is tricky because it has to represent it's something different for everyone. I guess I need to clarify. The question is, are you asking like what does the idea of aliens represent in a spiritual context? Like
I
what is
think
the impact of that? Or is it like
I like that question. I think I was meaning more along the lines of just that gray area that we did touch upon before, where sometimes, you know what, people see all kinds of things when they're just waking up from sleep. They see shadow
mhm,
people and little goblins and aliens and all this stuff that happens while you're astral projecting. Like there's this very like kind of spiritual side of that aliens get
sure.
dragged into a bit.
Mhm,
So I was meaning something like that, but I kind of like your take on the question.
mhm.
I like that. What does
Yeah,
it mean
well,
spiritually?
it depends. I guess it depends on the religion or the particular spirituality. But I don't think that it, for the most part, I don't think it conflicts. Right? They've done
Hmm.
studies. There's been lots of studies to identify that like most of the world religions are okay with it,
Hmm.
and it fits into the cosmology, and that I guess so. It comes down to individual relationships to it. Now, I do want to point out, though, that there is an unfortunate side effect of that spiritual aspect that appears to be playing out in with this soft disclosure, with this what we're finding in how it's being related to in the government, is that there is unfortunately a cadre of evangelicals who are afraid of it and feel that they represent a demonic presence, and therefore they restrict funding, they restrict studies, and they
Hmm.
try to fight these initiatives. And that there's John Alexander, for example. He was he's a colonel, and he an army colonel, and um, he worked with NIDS and at the Skinwalker Ranch, and um, he he's talked extensively about this problem. Is that the conspiracy, so to speak, or the cover up or the restriction from this information is coming from this group of people who are resisting it because they feel that it's demonic in nature, and that's that's one of the bigger problems that's inhibiting us.
Oh, yeah. So unfortunate. I mean,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the first time that that's happened, and I am not all that
Right.
surprised.
Right.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. Where would you like folks to follow you, find you?
Well, the Crypto Science Society is on all of the socials. You can, the easiest way to find us is go to our LinkTree. It's LinkTree/ParaCrypFology, and I'll send you the link so you can post it. But we're on all of we got the blog, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Um, and I do want to plug one thing really quick
Hmm.
is my cousin Alejandro Rojas is working with Enigma Labs to develop a app. It's in beta right now. They're working on it. So it's an app that you'll be able to download on your phone that will allow you to if you have a sighting, you can report it through the app and upload your videos, and it will collect all of the metadata and help to create a database for sightings. And it's hoping to be pretty a really user-friendly and an exciting tool that'll be able to move some things forward. So keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, check out Enigma Labs and look at what they're doing out there. So
Yeah. When do you know when that app's going to be released?
I don't, but I will keep you posted.
Yeah, please do, and I'll announce it on the show. That sounds so
Mm-hmm.
cool. All right, Jason. Well, did you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom you would like to leave with us?
Final thoughts, words of wisdom. Just keep keep questioning. Right? Don't take anything for granted. And just when you think that your theory is the one, just make sure you have a backup for when it gets shattered. Right?
Very good advice. Well, thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I like what you do. Keep up the good work. And I hope to be on again. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Jason has given me a lot to think about. As always, I just had a fantastic time getting to speak with him again. If you would like to connect with Jason, check out the LinkTree and the links that I have included below in the show notes. And keep an ear out for the app that his cousin, Alejandro Rojas, is working on. I will be sure to make the announcement on the show when that becomes available so that you can download and check it out for yourself. And I think I might too, just to be at the ready should anything happen. You never know what you're going to spot in the skies these days. Rate and review the show wherever you are listening. Subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. If you like what I'm doing here, jump on board so you do not miss a thing. That is going to be a wrap for us today. Join me next week. We will be talking alien abduction. Until then, stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.